When people hear the phrase create urgency, they usually think of pushy sales tactics, fake deadlines, pressure, manipulation, but that is not what I mean. Doing nothing is still a decision and it still is going to impact them. Sometimes the kindest thing that you can do is help someone see that it would be beneficial for them to be able to act now. Urgency is helping them to move forward like they need to move, but they're moving forward with confidence. Just creating urgency isn't about speeding up people to buy just to benefit you. It's about helping them to see why moving forward matters. And that's a very different conversation. If you're truly giving them direction and hope, that's the type of urgency that you want to be creating.
Hello, welcome to another episode of Sippin' Matcha and helping you make more sales, where in about the time it takes you to have your matcha or coffee break, our resident sales expert, Brooke Greening, gives you some great advice on your sales conversations. Because if you have to talk to people to make sales, how well you lead those conversations will make or break your revenue. And Brooke is coming in now. We just got back.
Hello.
In a moment of full disclosure, our podcast today is sipping water because we didn't have time. We just got back from vacation. We didn't have time to get milk yet. So no matcha latte for Brooke today.
No, it's just grind, work. No matcha today. But I do have a beautiful new cup that I got when we were on vacation.
There you go.
For this podcast.
Yep. It's a nice turtle. It matches our colors. All the things. So we've been working through our service sales framework and we've gone through 5 of the parts. Now we talked about setting expectations, establishing rapport, recognizing the problem, verbalizing the value, and identifying objections. And now we're to another typically favorite part of conversations for people, creating urgency. And this makes people usually very uncomfortable.
It does. And I understand why, because a lot of us have experienced urgency and it was used as manipulation. And so then usually when that happens, like we just decide to avoid it altogether.
All right. So that's what probably a lot of us have in mind is manipulation. What do you mean instead?
I mean, we need to be able to motivate them with action, with direction and hope. Not pressure, not manipulation, not tricking them, not pushing them in a corner, none of those things. Just giving them clear hope and then direction of what to do next.
All right. So motivating with direction and hope is a very different definition than most people probably have in mind. It goes along with a very different definition or thoughts about identifying objections that we talked about last time. And so this is, again, another place where your service sales framework takes a turn in a different direction, which is great because most people don't like these parts of the conversation.
It does, because I am not trying to convince someone to buy. A lot of times when you hear about urgency and creating that fake sense of urgency, you're trying to force them. And so pressure is trying to force them into a decision, but using direction and hope is encouraging them to be able to make a decision, and the best decision that they can make, the wisest decision they can make. That is the difference. We're not trying to pressure them into making a decision. We are trying to help them so that they can make the decision on their own with the direction and hope that we give them.
All right. So urgency is encouraging action but pressure is forcing the decision. Why is it so important to think about actually doing this? Why can't we just do what everybody wants to do and say, I'm just going to skip it?
Because we're actually not serving our clients in that moment, because problems are growing. And we've worked through this whole service framework. When we understand, okay, the problems they're facing, whether they're good problems, bad problems, what's happening in their business, then them not doing anything doesn't actually help anything. Things continue to grow. So maybe their revenue continues to struggle. Maybe it's time that's getting affected. Maybe it's their confidence. Maybe it's opportunities that their sales teams are never going to get back. Doing nothing is still a decision and it still is going to impact them.
Yeah. And it's easy to lose sight of that for yourself because maybe you don't like thinking about the alternative, or we tell ourselves stories all the time. And so it's actually helpful to encourage people, hey, if you don't do anything, it's not gonna stay the same. What's another reason why people should think about this idea of creating urgency?
The other reason why you want to create urgency is because if you avoid urgency, you're not playing the neutral ground. So many times people think, well, if I just don't do it, then everything's great and I'm actually serving them. And you are not, because we're trying not to be pushy. And I understand that because I hear it all the time. But when you actually avoid helping them to be making a decision, helping them to have an action, you're not being any more caring at that point. Because if we see a person and they have a problem and it's costing them something, and we don't even help them to think about that or what that looks like, we're not serving them very well. Sometimes the kindest thing that you can do is help someone see that it would be beneficial for them to be able to act now. This reminds me of a story when I was at Sunrise. And when I was at Sunrise, I was in sales. And so families were coming to us and they needed to find a place for their loved one to stay. And this is where they were going to live. So we had these big colonial mansions and they would come in and they'd be able to live there for the rest of their lives. It's a really emotional time. And it can be very alarming and jolting for them. And so we're having this whole conversation. We're realizing, okay, it is time for them to be able to move. They do need to move quickly, and they found the suite that they liked. So in comes like giving them clear direction and hope. And I told them, I said, if this is the suite that you want, you are welcome to have this. You can have it. All you have to do is just put a down payment on it. It's completely refundable if you decide not to move in, but this is the only way. I can't sell this suite to anybody else. You have to be able to put a check down to like save it. And the wife was just really kind of struggling. And she was like, yeah, but Brooke, but can't you call me if you're talking to somebody else? And the husband was like, honey, she's not going to do that. Like, she's telling you this is what we need to do. She's like, I don't know. I kind of like, I do really want to do it, but I don't know. And I said, it's completely your decision, but I need you to understand that if you leave, and I am talking to other people today, I don't know if I'm talking to them specifically about this suite yet, but if you leave and they want to secure the suite, they're going to, and then you're going to need to have to pick out a different suite. So it's completely up to you, but that is what's going to happen. And they're like, no, okay. And she left. And another family came in. And I knew it because I knew that this was a type of suite that was quick. People were going to want it quickly. And then they left the deposit. And she literally came in 2 hours later after that family was leaving. And she even saw it on their face. And she was like, they just secured the suite that we wanted, didn't they? And I said, they did. She's like, I didn't actually think it was going to happen. And her husband was like, she told you. She was trying to help you. She's like, I know, but I just thought it might have been like just a thing. And I didn't know. And then we were able to help them. Then they found the next suite that they wanted. And then she did secure it right then and there. That it is, you have to be honest. You have to give them direction. You have to give them hope. And if you don't, then you're setting them up for failure. Sometimes they'll do it. Sometimes they won't. But it is our job to let them know, hey, this is what the process is going to be. And this is why you should act if you're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think the moral of the story is for people that they should buy when you tell them to. So that's the no, it's a great story because oftentimes we think about creating urgency and we just think of, because we've experienced it. We've experienced the manipulation and the bad things and that, but we can't imagine, we lose sight of the fact that there are legitimate reasons why urgency is a good thing. And that's a good reminder. It reminds me of that Zig Ziglar quote that says, if you believe you have your product or service meets a true need, it's your moral obligation to sell it. So I don't know if I would go that far, but it's kind of along that same type of thought. What about another, I think you've got one more reason of why this creating urgency is a good thing and helps us think about it in a little different way.
The other piece is that hope needs direction. So many times, like in our sales coaching, you can hear, you need to paint this picture of like all of their problems going away. And then they'll say yes and blah, 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 blah. And that, I think that's a little bit of pooey. You can't just give someone hope and then they don't know what they need to do next. You have to tie them both together. You can't just paint this beautiful picture and have them say, oh yes, this is exactly what I want. But then we're not giving them any type of direction of what that looks like. That direction creates that urgency for them to either secure the deposit, to secure the date to start working with you, to like, those are things that need to happen in order to create urgency that serves your clients well.
Yeah, I thought I was going to have to get the beep button there for a minute, but
All I have is water, Scott. It's not strong
pooey.
enough.
That's very strong language. But what I think
I have a 5-year-old. That is the language that we use.
what you're helping us to realize is that urgency isn't about or it shouldn't be about raising anxiety, creating
No.
anxiety. It's something different.
No, you're actually creating relief and excitement for them. That's how you know that you're doing a good job of creating urgency that's giving direction and hope. If it's going to give them some relief and excitement to start working with you and confidence to move forward, that is what we want it to produce. Not anxiety, not panic. Those things can work to be able to buy, but as we're going to talk about later, that's not a good idea because now they don't trust you from the get-go. And that's just going to be a downhill from there.
All right. So how should people sort of think about this? You've given them a different way to think about urgency. How should they contemplate where they're at on this approach to urgency?
Yeah. So if you're doing this right, this is where you're having a sales conversation and nobody is feeling pressured. No one is feeling like, oh no, I have to do something. But the customer is actually thinking, oh, I haven't actually thought what it would cost if I was waiting. I actually didn't know how much that this could matter. But no one felt like they got manipulated and no one is feeling pushed into a corner. Urgency is not where we're trying to create panic for people. We're not trying to get them to panic and they have to buy and they're afraid they're going to lose out. That is a way to do it. That is not what I suggest. That's not what we work with our clients with. Urgency is helping them to move forward like they need to move, but they're moving forward with confidence. When you are creating urgency in a meaningful way, in a way that's going to resonate with them, that's what the results are. They're moving forward with confidence and they're excited. They're not panicked and they're not trying to figure out all of these things because that is actually not where you want a customer to be when they're getting ready to buy. You don't want them panicking. You don't want them rushing to a decision. It doesn't serve them at all. And it's not going to serve you in the long run.
I know you often give people questions to think about and to evaluate. Probably this time it's more of just sort of like, what are your thoughts on urgency? But what would you encourage people to ask themselves?
Yeah, because the very first thing you need perspective of how you're leading your sales conversations. And so you're going to know, are you creating any type of urgency? Are you not? So just ask yourself this question this week. When I hear the word urgency, am I thinking that I'm pressuring them or am I thinking that I'm helping them make a wise decision? That's going to be the very first step.
All right. Brooke has given us another way to think about our sales conversation, especially one of these areas where it's really easy to maybe skip past or avoid and it makes us feel uncomfortable. If you're wondering, how am I doing in my sales conversation? Brooke has a great sales conversation assessment, and it would just take you about 5 minutes to do. You can go to buildingmomentum.info/assessment, and you'll get some questions from her on all the 7 parts of her sales conversation framework, the service sales framework, and know how well you're leading those all so important sales conversations. And we're going to keep talking about this idea of urgency. And where are we going with this next week, Brooke?
Yes. So next week, we're going to talk about 3 ways that people are creating urgency. One way is that they're creating that fake it urgency. They're manufacturing it. Another way is where they're trapping people. And the other one is that they just avoid it. And we're going to talk about all 3 of those, what those are, what we don't want to do. It's going to be a great conversation. I can't wait.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It'll be good. What's your final nugget of wisdom today for us, Brooke?
Just creating urgency isn't about speeding up people to buy just to benefit you. It's about helping them to see why moving forward matters. And that's a very different conversation. If you're truly giving them direction and hope, that's the type of urgency that you want to be creating.
All right, everyone, we encourage you to like, to subscribe, to follow, to comment, to review, to do all those things so you can keep participating, keep hearing, keep getting notifications about these conversations. As always, we do invite you to join into the conversation at buildingmomentum.info/matcha. Let's try that again. We do encourage you to join the conversation at buildingmomentum.info/matcha, and you can find the links to subscribe and all the past episodes and all the good stuff. So until next time, we hope you make some great sales.